When Frank Mallory turned 65, his doctor told him something that made him laugh at first. Pay attention to your bathroom habits. They'll tell you more about your health than you think. Frank had expected advice about exercise, diet, or maybe a warning about watching his blood pressure. But bathroom habits? He brushed it off as just another quirky thing his physician liked to say. It wasn't until a year later, when a small change caught his attention, that he remembered those words. It started subtly. He noticed he was urinating more often at night. At first it was once, then twice, then sometimes 3 times. He told himself it was just the price of aging, nothing to worry about. But one morning, standing at the sink brushing his teeth, he thought about how tired he felt from the constant sleep interruptions. And then he remembered. Pay attention. That afternoon, he began jotting down what he noticed. Not just frequency, but color, urgency, even how things felt compared to years before. It felt strange at first, like he was tracking something too private. But the more he paid attention, the more he realized these little signals told a bigger story. The first big change he spotted was hydration. Frank had always been a coffee drinker, and during summer he'd swap the coffee for iced tea, both diuretics, both dehydrating. His urine was often darker than it should have been. A quick internet search confirmed what his doctor had hinted at. Dehydration, even mild, can strain the kidneys and heart, raising long-term health risks. Frank started carrying a water bottle and aiming for clear to pale yellow every day. The second thing he noticed was bowel movements. He'd never had trouble in that department, but lately there were days when things were slower. He read that after 60, changes in gut motility, medications, and reduced fiber intake could all cause constipation, something that, over time, could increase the risk of diverticulitis, hemorrhoids, and even colorectal cancer. It wasn't glamorous to think about, but it was important. He began adding oatmeal in the mornings, snacking on apples, and taking short walks after meals. The third pattern was urgency. Some mornings, the moment Frank woke, he felt an almost panicked rush to the bathroom. A few times, he barely made it in time. He remembered reading about overactive bladder being common with age, but it could also be a sign of infection, prostate enlargement, or nerve issues. This time, instead of brushing it off, he booked an appointment. Tests showed his prostate was slightly enlarged, but manageable with lifestyle changes, cutting back on late evening fluids, doing pelvic floor exercises, and avoiding bladder irritants like caffeine after dinner. Frank's bathroom observations didn't just stop at problems. They also reassured him when things were working well. When his urine stayed consistently pale, when his bowel movements were regular and painless, when nights passed without too many interruptions. Those were quiet victories. They meant his small changes were making a difference. Over time, he realized what his doctor had meant. The bathroom was like a health checkpoint he visited multiple times a day without fail. His heart might skip beats without him noticing. His arteries might slowly stiffen, but changes in elimination were immediate, visible signals. Once, during a visit with his old friend Walter, the topic came up over coffee. Walter rolled his eyes. "I'm not keeping a diary of my toilet trips, Frank. I've got better things to do." Frank just smiled. "That's what I thought. Then I realized ignoring the signs is how you end up wishing you'd paid attention earlier." The truth was, the habits he developed didn't take much effort. He didn't obsess. He just noticed. When things were off for more than a couple of days, he asked why. Was it diet? Stress? Not enough movement? Sometimes the answer was simple. Sometimes it meant making an appointment. The most dramatic moment came 2 years later when Frank noticed blood in his stool. Not a lot, just a faint streak. In the past, he might have ignored it for weeks, thinking it was nothing. But this time, his bathroom awareness made him act immediately. A colonoscopy revealed a small precancerous polyp. It was removed before it could turn into anything worse. His doctor told him plainly, "If you'd waited, we might have had a very different conversation in a few years." That night, Frank sat in his kitchen, sipping water, and thought about how close he'd come to missing the warning. It wasn't all doom and caution. There was something oddly grounding about knowing his own rhythms, being able to say with certainty when something was different. It made him feel more in control of a part of aging that often felt unpredictable. By the time he turned 70, tracking his bathroom habits wasn't a chore. It was just part of life, like brushing his teeth. He could tell when he was hydrated enough, when his diet needed more fiber, when a restless night might mean cutting back on late evening drinks. One afternoon, at his grandson's soccer game, his daughter mentioned a friend whose father had been hospitalized with a kidney infection that went unnoticed for too long. Frank listened quietly, then said, "You know, your bathroom is like a mirror for your insides. You just have to look." She gave him a half smile, half grimace. "Dad, that's kind of gross." "Maybe," Frank said, "but it might also save your life." Later that evening, as he washed his hands, he caught his own reflection in the mirror. His hair was whiter, his skin more lined, but his eyes were steady. Aging, he thought, wasn't about pretending nothing changed. It was about noticing the changes soon enough to do something about them. And sometimes the first place to notice was the last place you'd expect.